Early. Thank you for joining me here today. I am heading to Washington, D.C. in a couple of hours for the oral arguments in our tariff case before the Supreme Court. The law that the President is using, the International Economic Powers Act, IEPA, does not empower the President to impose tariffs. In fact, the statute, IEPA, doesn't even mention the word tariffs. And now two courts, both the Court of International Trade and the Federal Circuit Appeals Court, have ruled that President Trump does not have the authority to implement tariffs. And I am confident that the Supreme Court will agree with them. Industries and businesses, small and large, across Arizona have been deeply impacted by these illegal tariffs. Even worse, the administration's on-again, off-again approach to announcing and withdrawing these tariffs has injected massive uncertainty into global markets and our local economy. Arizona's international trade reached a record $74.4 billion in 2024. Arizona's top export countries in 2024 included Mexico at $9 billion, Canada at $2.8 billion, the Netherlands at $1.9 billion, China at $1.7 billion, and the United Kingdom at $1.4 billion. Arizona's economy depends heavily on international trade. Trade supports 830,000 jobs. Let me repeat that. Trade supports 830,000 jobs in the state of Arizona. That is 1 out of every 5 jobs in our state is dependent on trade and is likely threatened in some way by these tariffs. That is billions of dollars for our state's economy and hundreds of small businesses that could be devastated by Trump's tariff taxes. And they are driving up the cost of living, hurting families every single day. We know that these tariffs, these taxes, are having a dramatic impact, a serious impact on grocery prices for Arizonans, especially here as we head into the Thanksgiving holidays. The damage is not theoretical. It is happening in real time, and that is why we are fighting these tariffs so hard. I believe really strongly in this case because if a president is allowed to illegally implement tariffs on a whim without authorization from our elected representatives, we do not have free market capitalism anymore. We have a mafia state. And that is why this case is so very important. And now I would be happy to take questions, but before I do that, I want to also tell you about a couple of other important statistics. 62% of Americans say that they have experienced price increases on everyday goods. And Americans now face an average tariff rate of 17.4%. That is 17.4%. That is the highest tariff rate since 1935. So this case could not be more important. And lastly, let me say this. This is a triple whammy situation for our Arizona consumers. They are dealing with the tax increase associated with these illegal Trump tariffs. They are dealing with the cruel cuts to our SNAP benefits, which thank God we won a huge court victory against on Friday. And of course, They are dealing now with the possible doubling and tripling of their ACA health insurance premiums, which went into place just in the last couple of days. So our consumers in Arizona, across this country, are under incredible duress because of the illegal actions and the cruelty of the Trump administration, and it's got to stop. And we're headed to Washington, D.C. to slay this dragon that is called Trump's illegal tariffs. So thank you guys for being here this morning, and I'd be happy to take any questions. Stacy.
Thank you. This is an in the weeds question. Are you going into the public gallery, or do you have like a reserved seat? How does this work?
My God, that's an in the weeds question. Good question. I was just talking about that. Hopefully, we'll be in the bar section, or the I guess the lawyer section of the Supreme Court. But if necessary, we'll be in the public gallery. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. But I'm just excited. This is actually the first time I've attended a Supreme Court hearing, and be my first time also inside the Supreme Court, as an attorney. And I'm really excited for our teams. Most lawyers don't ever have a case that goes to the United States Supreme Court, and certainly most lawyers don't have the chance to argue a case like this that will impact the lives of every single American, and hopefully in a positive way when we win this case on behalf of American consumers.
Can you say more about that? Who from your office is arguing? What's the role of Arizona in this case tomorrow?
So the folks, it's really interesting. There's a very limited number of people who are selected to actually argue the case. There were multiple plaintiffs in this case. The folks, and this is the order that the argument will occur. The folks from the plaintiffs will be Neil Katyal, who will be representing the businesses who are arguing against the tariffs. And then for the states, for the all Democratic states that filed the lawsuit, arguing for us will be Ben Gutman, who is the longtime Solicitor General for the state of Oregon. And as you know, Oregon and Arizona are the two lead states on this case for the states. Yes?
What's been your role in the preparation for actually presenting oral arguments, and what's the communication been with who are speaking for?
Right. So Arizona and my office worked very closely with Oregon in drafting the initial lawsuit, and then in getting ready for the oral arguments in front of the Court of International Trade and in front of the appellate court, and then we were involved in the moot court process to get ready for the Supreme Court argument. So we've been helping Ben get ready for his portion of the argument. As you know, it's a boom process. This is, you get a very specific amount of time to make your arguments from the Supreme Court. They're down to business at the Supreme Court. So that's the role that we have played. But we were very, the whole thing started when Dan Rayfield, who is the Attorney General of Oregon, I went up to participate in the town hall that he held on the Trump litigation. As you know, he came down to my town hall here in Phoenix. I then went up to his town hall in Portland to participate there, and we got together in a small room before the meeting, and he said, before the public meeting, and he said to me, "Kris, I think we should be suing over these tariffs." He said, "I think that these tariffs are illegal," and we actually here at the Attorney General's office had been having those very same conversations. And I said, "Dan, I think you're right, and we should sue. This is a lawsuit that we should take up on behalf of Arizonans and Oregonians and everybody, any other state that wants to join in." So that's actually how it all came together.
Any idea how long it may take for the court to reach an opinion on this?
So great question, Rick. We don't know for sure how long this will take. We are hopeful that the Supreme Court will rule quickly on this, because every day that goes by is a day that Arizona, I believe, is losing a small business, maybe multiple small businesses because of these tariffs. Every day that goes by is a day that Arizona consumers are being harmed. And so we hope the Supreme Court will rule expeditiously, but it could take a while. So it's up to them. It's a good sign that they took the case and that they are doing the oral arguments now so quickly after having taken the case.
General, good morning, General.
Good morning.
Flight, obviously.
Thank you.
We love having you. We appreciate you this morning. Ma'am, there's two things, General. One is who's meeting you with this issue there for the first time, and second, this almost together, is Senator Kelly and Senator Diego are helping in any form or fashion.
So let me answer that first part. Senator Gallego and Kelly have been very supportive of the lawsuit. I think they know the stakes of this. Our delegation, our Democratic delegation, understands the stakes of this. They are very supportive, and they're watching this very closely because their constituents are impacted. I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question?
The other one was who's meeting you, since you're going to the airport now and you're going to,
Yeah.
Of course, the law firm, you say law firm, but who's individual you like to plug in to give them a name? Who's meeting you and to show you around?
Well, I don't know that. I don't think we have anybody meeting us, but we'll probably be meeting with Dan Rayfield's team in Oregon when we get there.
How often your office is going?
So Dan Barr behind you, my chief deputy, and longtime attorney here in Arizona will be going. Josh Bender unfortunately couldn't go because of some family issues. And then we've got Delaney Corcoran out there as well. So we'll be doing some press on the steps of the Supreme Court after the oral arguments.
Are you, the president had talked for a while about maybe he was going to go to these arguments. Did you have plans to try to talk to him if you were both in the room at the same time?
It would have been the first time that I had ever been in the room with President Trump, but no, probably not. I don't want to. I think this is a pretty solemn occasion where we're all very focused on the litigation, on the case. I feel a very heavy burden, a weight on our shoulders to win this case because of the damage that is being done to Arizona by these illegal tariffs, taxes. And so we want to get in there and we want to make our case as strongly as we possibly can and try to protect our economy. I think everybody is seeing the job numbers go down. Everybody is seeing inflation go up in Arizona, and everybody is seeing that 900,000 Arizonans are now having to go without SNAP benefits, at least for the next couple of weeks. And that is a recipe for disaster. So we need to slay this dragon called tariffs quickly.
Just curious, any small part of you a little disappointed that you're not going to be the one getting
No, I feel very strongly that, my job is to put our best foot forward in these cases and these oral arguments. And that means putting our best appellate lawyers in front of the United States Supreme Court or in front of a federal district court judge. And we have so many brilliant lawyers in this building over here and across the country in Solicitor General's offices, that those are the people that we want to put forward. I think it would, I want to do the right thing for the people of Arizona, and that doesn't mean me being it means me checking my ego at the door and not having to be the one arguing this case. Yes?
I have two questions. The first is, as you mentioned, this has such a
Yeah. Some of you were here for the some of you were here for the business roundtable that we had, and we heard testimony from several small businesses that said that they were on the verge of collapse, and that they did not know whether they were going to make it through to the end of the year. We had a game manufacturer who said that, and he was a very successful startup owner here in Arizona, makes video games and other games, and he said his business has seen a dramatic decline. We heard from a furniture manufacturer here in Arizona who is seeing the price of inputs for his furniture go way up, and he's very worried about that. I have heard from a couple of different hotel owners, including one in northern Arizona, who said that business is down dramatically because so many international visitors are boycotting America or are afraid to come to America because of the ICE raids. And so we know that this, there's a lot of, we heard from a local, sorry about that. We heard from, maybe motorcycles are being impacted also. Yeah, probably Harley Davidsons have component parts that also are being impacted by tariffs. But anyway, we heard from a brewer over in Tempe who said the cost of the grains that go into beer has gone up. Yesterday I had a meeting here at the office in which a representative of the agriculture community here in Arizona said that they are seeing difficulty now in selling farm produce to other countries. Arizona farmers are losing their markets because of these tariffs, and China was a market for many of our farmers. Europe was a market for many of our farmers. Mexico, we do tremendous trade across the border of Mexico, and our cattle ranchers are being impacted by these tariffs. And so the problem here is that once we lose these markets, it's possible that we've lost them forever. And that is catastrophic for family farmers who have lived in Arizona for generations, who now are seeing their markets just evaporate into thin air because of these tariffs. So that's why it's so important for the Supreme Court to rule quickly and to get us back into a situation where if Donald Trump wants to enact tariffs, then do it the right way. Go to Congress. That is what our founding fathers envisioned. That's what the Constitution and statute requires. And let's also remember that we fought a revolutionary war against tariffs, against kings and executives who would impose tariffs on our country without our permission and without our representation. And that is really what's happening again in this country. So,
second question.
yeah, and then we
As
gotta go.
You must know that you're making history, right? This is one of several landmark cases, and I strongly believe that our children keep reading about this in history books. If our children become attorneys, they're going to be reading about this in law school books. And I'm just wondering, as a fellow attorney, has this moment and how is it impacting you, and has it hit you?
Yeah, it's hitting me right now, actually. as we head off to the Supreme Court to argue what I think may be the most important case, at least with regard to our economy, that the Supreme Court has ever heard. And we do not want to be taken back 100 years to a time, quite frankly, when our economy was destroyed and we faced a Great Depression. And I quite frankly fear that if these tariffs are allowed to continue, that's what we could be facing. Because that's what happened leading up to 1929 and the early 1930s. It was tariffs that did that. So I've got one more and then I got to run.
Yeah, I have a question about the SNAP lawsuit.
Yeah.
Of course, the ruling where they said that they would, fund out of the contingency fund was in the Rhode Island case.
Yeah.
DES tells me that they still haven't gotten the tables that they need to calculate the benefit. If that drags on for any longer, is there anything Arizona could do to try to speed that process up?
Yeah, we're working closely with DES to try to make sure that they have everything that they need, and we're going to go back, obviously, today and the next couple of days to the Trump administration and try to figure out what's going on with that. I hope the Trump administration is not dragging its feet and is not violating another court order, because Arizonans deserve to eat for Thanksgiving. I mean, Donald Trump is basically trying to cancel Thanksgiving for Arizonans. That's what's happening. Make no mistake, this is Donald Trump canceling Thanksgiving for 900,000 Arizonans if we can't get SNAP back into place. What was the second part of your question?
Just, what can Arizona do?
So, I mean, you guys know my position. I wish that the legislature and the governor would go back in and do a special session. I know that there's not an appetite for that. I wish that we do more to try to look for some emergency funding that we could move around. And certainly I know that there are some companies out there that are voluntarily providing money to food banks. I would call on every large business in Arizona today to give as much as you can to food banks. Some of you know I'm not a big fan of APS, but I learned yesterday that APS gave $1 million to food banks. Every large business in Arizona should be doing the same thing. So thank you guys very much. I appreciate it. I got to run.
Thank you, General.